Overthinking can feel like an invisible weight carried inside the mind, quietly shaping how you see everything around you. One thought leads to another, and before you notice, you are replaying the past, predicting the future, and overanalyzing even the smallest details of the present moment. This constant mental activity can leave you feeling drained, unsettled, and unable to experience real inner stillness, even when everything around you is quiet. If this sounds familiar, you are not alone. In today's fast-moving world, many people find themselves trapped in cycles of endless thinking, searching for clarity, but only finding more confusion. The mind becomes busy, but peace feels distant. In this video, you will explore 10 Buddhist teachings that are not meant to control your thoughts, but to free you from being controlled by them. Each teaching is simple, practical, and deeply human. They are not rules to follow perfectly, but reminders that help you return to yourself. Let us begin this journey slowly, with patience, and without pressure. You do not need to become someone new. You only need to see what has always been here beneath the noise of thinking. 1. Understanding that overthinking is a habit of the mind, not your true self. One of the deepest sources of suffering comes from believing that your thoughts define who you are. When the mind becomes busy, we unconsciously assume that this busyness is me. When thoughts become heavy, we feel that we are heavy. When thoughts become anxious, we believe that we are anxious. Slowly, without noticing it, identity becomes merged with mental activity. But in Buddhist understanding, thoughts are not identity. They are events. They arise, they move, and they pass away. They are shaped by conditions, memories, emotions, and sensations, but they are not a fixed self. This distinction is subtle, yet it changes everything. Overthinking becomes more painful when you believe you are the one creating every thought deliberately. In reality, much of thinking arises automatically. The mind produces thoughts the way the sky produces weather. Some days are clear, some days are cloudy, some days are stormy. But the sky is never damaged by weather. It remains open, unchanged, and vast. In the same way, your awareness is not damaged by your thoughts. You are not the storm. You are the space in which the storm appears. There is a quiet freedom in seeing this clearly. You begin to notice that thoughts can be observed rather than obeyed. You can watch worry arise without becoming worry itself. You can notice planning, imagining, or remembering without being pulled entirely into them. A simple practice begins to emerge from this understanding. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" you begin to ask, "What is present in the mind right now?" This small shift moves you from identity to observation, from being inside the thought to being aware of it. Over time, this creates a gentle distance, not a cold or disconnected distance, but a spacious one. A space where you can breathe again. And in that space, something important becomes clear. You are not broken because you think too much. You are not lost because your mind is active. You are simply witnessing the natural movement of thought without yet having learned how to rest as the awareness behind it. When this is understood, overthinking begins to lose its authority. It may still appear, but it no longer defines the truth of who you are. 2. The mind moves toward what it resists. One of the most overlooked causes of overthinking is resistance. We often believe that struggling against thoughts will free us from them. We try to push them away, silence them, correct them, or replace them. Yet in many cases, this struggle only strengthens their presence. From a Buddhist perspective, resistance creates tension, and tension feeds mental activity. When you resist a thought, you are still engaging with it. You are still giving it importance. The mind interprets resistance as a tension, and attention becomes energy. This is why certain thoughts grow stronger the more you try to remove them. It is not because they are powerful in themselves, but because they are continuously being reinforced through struggle. Imagine holding a ball underwater. The more force you use to push it down, the more pressure builds. Eventually, it rises with even greater force. The mind behaves in a similar way. What is pushed down returns with intensity. The teaching here is not to surrender helplessly, but to stop feeding unnecessary conflict. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this thought?" the practice becomes, "Can I allow this thought to be here without fighting it?" This does not mean agreement. It means non-engagement. You are no longer arguing with the presence of experience. When resistance softens, something unexpected happens. The thought loses its urgency. It begins to unfold naturally, without needing to be solved immediately. The mind, when not pressured, often settles on its own. There is a quiet intelligence in allowing space. You begin to notice that not every thought requires response. Not every mental message is a command. Some thoughts are simply echoes of stress, habit, or memory. A peaceful relationship with the mind begins when you stop treating it as an enemy. Instead of trying to win a battle against your thoughts, you begin to understand them as passing movements within awareness. And in this understanding, something softens inside you. The need to control every inner experience slowly dissolves. In its place, a quieter presence begins to grow, a presence that does not need to fix everything in order to feel safe. Overthinking weakens not through force, but through space, and space is created when resistance is gently released. 3. Most thoughts are not about reality, but about interpretation. Much of overthinking comes from one simple misunderstanding. We assume that what we think is what is happening, but in truth, most thoughts are not direct reflections of reality. They are interpretations shaped by fear, memory, expectation, and imagination. The mind does not only see the world, it comments on the world. It evaluates, predicts, compares, and constructs meaning. This is natural. It is how humans make sense of experience. But problems arise when we forget that these interpretations are not facts. A single situation can produce countless mental versions of itself. One moment becomes a story of failure, success, danger, or hope, depending on the lens through which it is viewed. Yet the situation itself remains simple, often far simpler than the thinking surrounding it. Buddhist teachings gently invite us to see this distinction. There is what is happening, and there is what the mind says is happening. These are not always the same. When overthinking takes hold, we often become lost in interpretation and forget to return to direct experience. Instead of noticing there is breathing, we think, "I am not okay." Instead of noticing there is a sensation, we think, "Something is wrong." The gap between reality and interpretation becomes the source of unnecessary suffering. The practice is not to stop thinking entirely, but to recognize thinking as thinking, to see it as a layer added on top of experience, not the experience itself. When you begin to observe thoughts in this way, something subtle shifts. You no longer take every mental statement as truth. You begin to pause before believing, before reacting, before following the story. In that pause, clarity becomes possible. You may notice that many thoughts repeat old patterns. They replay past concerns or project future fears. Yet when observed closely, they are often not grounded in what is actually present right now. Returning to the present moment becomes a form of correction, not by force, but by recognition. You see the difference between the raw moment and the mind's interpretation of it. And slowly over time the mind learns a new rhythm. A rhythm where thoughts can arise without automatically becoming reality. A rhythm where peace is not dependent on perfect thinking, but on clear seeing. 4. You cannot think your way into peace. There is a moment many people silently experience, even if they never say it out loud. It is the realization that thinking more does not actually solve thinking. Instead, it often deepens it. You try to analyze your way out of anxiety. You try to reason your way out of confusion. You try to mentally organize your inner world until it finally feels safe again. But the mind, when used as the tool of escape, becomes the very place you are trying to escape from. Buddhism gently points to something simple here. Peace is not the result of more thought. Peace is the result of a quieter relationship with thought. When the mind is overactive, it believes that clarity is somewhere ahead, waiting to be reached through enough thinking. But clarity is not at the end of thinking. It is what becomes visible when thinking softens. This is why many spiritual teachings do not encourage more mental effort, but less mental struggle. Not ignorance, but ease. Not avoidance, but direct presence. There is a subtle shift that happens when you stop trying to solve everything internally. Instead of treating every thought as a problem to fix, you begin to see some thoughts as events that can be witnessed and allowed to dissolve naturally. Imagine standing near a lake. If you constantly disturb the water, you will only see distortion. But if you allow it to settle, the reflection becomes clear on its own. The clarity was never created, it was revealed. In the same way, peace is not manufactured through mental effort. It is uncovered when effort relaxes. This does not mean you stop reflecting or learning. It means you stop turning reflection into pressure. You begin to notice when thinking becomes circular, when it no longer leads anywhere new, when it is simply repeating fear in different forms. At that point, the most skillful response is not more thinking, but a gentle return to awareness itself. A return to breathing, sensing, and simply being present without solving. Over time, this changes your relationship with your inner world. You no longer feel required to think your way out of every discomfort. You begin to trust that awareness itself is already stable enough to hold whatever arises, and in that trust, the mind slowly learns to rest. 5. Emotions do not need to be fixed, only held with awareness. Many people enter overthinking not because of thoughts alone, but because of emotions that feel too large, too unclear, or too uncomfortable to stay with directly. So the mind steps in. It begins to analyze, explain, justify, or predict. Thinking becomes a way to avoid feeling, but emotions are not problems to solve. They are experiences to be understood through presence. In Buddhist practice, emotions are seen as waves of energy arising within consciousness. They are not enemies. They are not mistakes. They are temporary expressions of conditions such as memory, perception, and current circumstances. When an emotion arises, fear, sadness, confusion, the natural response of the mind is often to move away from it, to think about it instead of feeling it. But this creates a loop. Feeling generates thinking, and thinking disconnects from feeling, which then generates more thinking. The way out is not suppression and not indulgence, but awareness. When you stay with an emotion without labeling it too quickly, something important begins to unfold. You begin to notice that emotions are not solid. They change shape. They rise, peak, and soften. What felt overwhelming at first begins to shift when it is simply allowed to be present. This is where mindfulness becomes deeply practical, not as a concept, but as a way of staying close to your direct experience without escaping into mental commentary. You might notice tightness in the chest, heaviness in the stomach, warmth, pressure, or restlessness. Instead of turning immediately to explanation, you gently remain with sensation itself, and slowly something inside begins to soften, not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting it. There is a quiet intelligence in allowing emotions to complete themselves. When they are not interrupted by constant analysis, they often resolve in their own time. Overthinking weakens here because its fuel is reduced. It no longer needs to explain what is already being directly experienced. And what remains is simpler. A human being feeling something without needing to turn it into a story. 6. Impermanence is not a philosophy, it is a direct experience. One of the most stabilizing teachings in Buddhism is impermanence. Not as an idea to believe, but as something to observe directly in every moment. Everything you experience is changing. Sensations change, thoughts change, emotions change. Even your sense of identity shifts depending on context, time, and attention. Yet when we are caught in overthinking, we often behave as if current experience is permanent. A difficult thought appears, and the mind assumes it will stay. A strong emotion arises, and the mind assumes it defines the moment completely. This creates fear, urgency, and mental tension. Impermanence gently interrupts this assumption. If you look closely, you begin to notice that no thought remains unchanged. Even the most persistent worry is not continuous. It appears in waves. It returns, but never exactly the same way. This realization does not remove difficulties, but it changes your relationship to them. Instead of feeling trapped inside a fixed mental state, you begin to see movement. Even in heaviness, there is subtle change happening. Even in confusion, something is shifting. This is important because overthinking often relies on the illusion of permanence. It convinces you that this will always be how it is, even when experience itself contradicts this. When you see impermanence clearly, the mind begins to loosen its grip, not because you forced it, but because it no longer believes in its own static story. There is a quiet relief in this recognition. You are not stuck in a single emotional or mental state. You are moving through states. Like weather passing through the sky, everything eventually changes. And when this is seen directly, even in small moments, a deep trust begins to form. A trust that you do not need to control every experience in order for it to shift. It is already shifting on its own. Overthinking loses strength when certainty is no longer demanded from the changing mind. 7. Mindful breathing is a return, not a technique. Many people approach breathing practices as a method to achieve calm, but in Buddhist understanding, breathing is not something you use to create peace. It is something you return to when you remember that peace is already available in awareness. The breath is always here. It does not leave you. It does not ask for effort. It continues naturally, whether you are thinking clearly or feeling overwhelmed. Because of this, it becomes a natural anchor, not as a tool of control, but as a place of coming home. When the mind becomes crowded, attention usually gets pulled into thought. Past, future, interpretation, and reaction all compete for attention. The breath offers a different kind of invitation. It does not demand analysis. It does not require resolution. It simply continues. When you gently place attention on breathing, you are not trying to stop thinking. You are allowing attention to rest in something stable while thoughts continue in the background. Over time, something subtle happens. The mind begins to synchronize with this simplicity, not because it is forced, but because it is given space. You may notice that the breath changes depending on mental state. When you are tense, it becomes shallow. When you are calm, it becomes open. This creates a feedback loop where awareness of breathing naturally supports emotional regulation. But the deeper purpose is not control, it is presence. Each time you return to the breath, you are returning from mental abstraction to direct experience, from thinking about life to actually being alive. This return is gentle. It does not require perfection. You will forget and remember many times. Each return is not failure, but practice. And in this simple returning, overthinking slowly loses its dominance. Not because it disappears, but because it is no longer the only place where attention lives. There is now another home within experience, the breath, the present, the quiet awareness that has always been here. 8. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one who hears it. There is a very quiet realization that can change the way you experience your entire life, but it is often overlooked because it feels too simple. It is the understanding that the voice in your head is not you. It is something you are aware of, not something you are. Most people grow up assuming that their inner voice is their identity. It speaks in first person. It uses your name. It sounds familiar. So naturally, it feels like me. It comments on everything you do, everything you remember, everything you fear, everything you hope for. And because it never really stops, it becomes easy to believe that it is who you are. But if you look closely, something important becomes visible. You can hear the voice, but you are not the voice itself. You can notice thoughts, but you are not identical with them. There is something here that is aware of thinking, something that remains constant even as thoughts change. In Buddhist understanding, this is a shift from identification to awareness. Instead of being inside the thought stream, you begin to recognize the space in which thoughts appear. This is not abstract philosophy. It is something you can observe directly in your own experience. Right now, there may be a voice in your mind commenting on these words. Perhaps it agrees, perhaps it doubts, perhaps it wanders. But there is also something present that is simply aware of this happening. That awareness is not speaking, it is not arguing, it is simply knowing. This distinction is subtle, but it is powerful. Because overthinking thrives on identification, it grows stronger when every thought is taken as personal truth. It deepens when the internal voice is treated as authority without question. and it becomes overwhelming when there is no space between the one who hears and the thoughts being heard. When you begin to notice this space, even briefly, something softens inside. You realize you do not need to follow every sentence your mind produces. You do not need to respond to every internal suggestion or prediction. You can hear it and still remain here, present. There is a natural analogy often used in contemplative traditions. Thoughts are like sounds in a room. Some are loud, some are quiet, some are repetitive. But the room itself does not become the sound, it simply holds it. In the same way, awareness holds thoughts without becoming them. Overthinking feels so intense precisely because this distinction is forgotten. The voice becomes me, and so everything it says feels personal, urgent, and real. A thought about failure feels like actual failure. A thought about danger feels like immediate danger. A thought about the past becomes emotional reliving of the past. But when you step back even slightly, you begin to see that thoughts are events occurring within awareness. They are not commands. They are not definitions. They are not final statements about who you are. You may notice that when you are tired, thoughts become heavier. When you are stressed, they become faster. When you are calm, they become quieter. This shows something important. The voice changes depending on conditions. Something that constantly changes cannot be the stable self you are looking for. The awareness that notices all of this, however, remains consistent. It is present whether thoughts are calm or chaotic, whether emotions are pleasant or uncomfortable. It does not need to improve itself in order to exist. When this is seen clearly, even for a moment, the relationship with thinking begins to change. You no longer feel completely inside it. You begin to relate to it the way you would relate to weather passing through the sky. Sometimes noisy, sometimes peaceful, always moving, never permanent. This does not mean the inner voice disappears. It continues, but its authority weakens. It becomes one part of experience, not the definition of it. You begin to notice pauses between thoughts, small gaps of silence that were always there but previously overlooked. In those gaps there is no instruction, no pressure, no narrative, just presence. And slowly you begin to trust something deeper than thinking. Not because thinking is wrong, but because it is incomplete. It describes, but it does not define. It moves, but it does not hold still. It reflects life, but it is not life itself. You are the awareness in which even the idea of you appears. When this understanding begins to settle, overthinking loses a large part of its control, because it no longer has full ownership of your identity. It becomes a voice among many experiences, not the center of existence. And in that space, a quiet kind of freedom begins to grow. 9. Letting go does not mean losing control. It means stopping the struggle against life. There is a misunderstanding that keeps many people trapped in overthinking for years. It is the belief that if you stop trying to control your thoughts, your emotions, or your life, something will fall apart. Because of this belief, the mind keeps tightening its grip. It keeps analyzing, preparing, preventing, and rehearsing. It keeps building endless internal strategies for every possible outcome. And yet, despite all this effort, peace remains distant. Buddhist teachings gently point to a different direction. Letting go is not the absence of care. It is not neglect. It is not giving up on life. It is the recognition that much of what we try to control was never truly controllable in the first place. There is a deep difference between healthy responsibility and mental struggle. Responsibility is grounded in presence. It responds to what is actually here. Struggle, on the other hand, is often rooted in imagination. It tries to manage not only what is happening, but also what might happen, what could have happened, and what should not have happened. This is where overthinking begins to expand endlessly. When the mind believes it must control everything in order to stay safe, it creates constant internal tension. Even in moments of calm, it scans for problems. Even in moments of rest, it prepares for disturbance. This continuous effort becomes exhausting, yet it is often mistaken for being careful or responsible. But carefulness does not require mental suffering. Awareness does not require constant tension. Letting go, in the Buddhist sense, is the softening of this unnecessary struggle. It is the moment you stop trying to hold life in place through thought. It is the recognition that life is already moving, whether the mind agrees or not. There is a simple but powerful reflection you can return to again and again. Is there anything I can actually control in this moment, or am I only trying to control a thought about this moment? Most of the time, overthinking is not about action. It is about mental simulation. The mind rehearses conversations that have not happened. It replays events that are already over. It constructs scenarios that may never occur. All of this creates a feeling of effort, but no real change in reality. When you begin to see this clearly, something softens naturally. You start to notice the difference between doing and thinking about doing, between responding and rehearsing, between living and mentally preparing to live. There is a story often shared in contemplative traditions about a traveler carrying a heavy bag. Inside the bag are stones representing worries, regrets, fears, and imagined futures. The traveler believes the weight is necessary for protection. Over time, the bag becomes heavier and the journey becomes more painful. Eventually, the traveler realizes something simple. The stones are not helping him walk. They are only making the walking harder. He does not throw everything away. He simply puts down what is unnecessary for this step, this moment, this breath. Letting go works in the same way. It is not a dramatic rejection of life. It is a quiet recognition of what is not needed right now. Sometimes letting go means allowing uncertainty to exist without trying to resolve it immediately. Sometimes it means allowing emotions to move through without forcing them into clarity. Sometimes it means accepting that answers may not come as quickly as the mind demands. This can feel uncomfortable at first because the mind is used to immediate resolution. It believes that uncertainty must be fixed in order for safety to exist. But over time, you begin to notice something surprising. When you stop forcing clarity, clarity often arrives on its own. When you stop tightening around experience, experience becomes more livable. Letting go is not a passive state. It is a deeply intelligent form of participation. You are still engaged with life, but without unnecessary resistance. You are still making choices, but not from panic. You are still thinking, but not being carried away by thinking. There is also an important emotional dimension here. Many people overthink not because they lack information, but because they are trying to avoid discomfort. The mind believes that if it can think enough, it can prevent emotional pain, but emotional life cannot be fully controlled through thought. When you stop trying to mentally escape discomfort, something shifts. You begin to discover that feelings, even difficult ones, are not permanent states. They rise, they move, and they eventually change when they are not constantly resisted. Letting go allows this natural movement to happen. It is important to understand that this practice is not about becoming indifferent. It is about becoming less entangled. You still care, but you are no longer consumed by the need to control outcomes that are beyond your reach. Over time, this creates a quiet confidence, not the confidence of certainty, but the confidence of flexibility. You begin to trust your ability to meet life as it unfolds, rather than needing to predict it perfectly in advance. And in this trust, overthinking begins to lose its necessity. Because the mind no longer has to carry the impossible task of controlling everything. It can simply participate in what is here. Letting go, then, is not loss. It is relief. 10. Peace is not something you reach. It is what remains when you stop leaving the present moment. There is a quiet misunderstanding that keeps many people searching endlessly for peace. It is the belief that peace exists somewhere else. Somewhere after the mind becomes quieter, somewhere after life becomes easier, somewhere after problems are solved, emotions are healed, or thoughts finally stop moving. Because of this belief, the mind keeps reaching forward. It imagines a future version of life where everything finally feels stable. It says, "When this situation ends, I will be peaceful," or "When I finally understand everything, I will be calm," or "When my thoughts stop, then I will be free." But in Buddhist understanding, this search itself is what delays the experience of peace. Peace is not something that arrives after life becomes perfect. It is what becomes visible when attention is no longer constantly escaping the present moment. Right now, if you look closely, there is already experience happening. Sensations are present, breathing is present, sounds are present, even thinking is present. Yet the mind often leaves this direct experience and enters a mental world built from memory and imagination. Overthinking is not only too many thoughts, it is the continuous departure from what is here. The present moment is simple, but the mind often resists simplicity because it seems too ordinary to be enough. So it creates layers, it adds commentary, it builds meaning, predictions, interpretations, and judgments. And in doing so, it becomes absorbed in its own construction, forgetting the raw simplicity of being here. Buddhist teachings gently point back to this simplicity again and again, not as an achievement, but as a return. There is nothing you need to add to this moment in order for it to be complete. What creates suffering is not the moment itself, but the constant comparison between this moment and an imagined better one. When you are lost in overthinking, notice how often the mind is not actually here. It is reviewing what has already passed or rehearsing what has not yet arrived. Rarely does it rest fully in what is directly unfolding. But when attention returns, even briefly, something becomes noticeable. There is already life happening without effort. Breathing continues on its own. The body is here without instruction. Sounds arise without asking permission. This quiet functioning does not require mental control. And in this recognition, something softens. You begin to understand that peace is not something you construct through effort. It is what is already present when effort is no longer directed toward escaping the now. This does not mean you stop planning or remembering. It means you stop living entirely inside those movements. They can appear, but they no longer take you away from presence. There is a subtle difference between thinking and being absorbed in thinking, between experiencing life and mentally leaving it. The practice is not to eliminate thought, but to notice when you have left the present moment entirely. Each time you notice, there is an opportunity to return, not with force, but with awareness, a gentle coming back to what is already here. Over time, this return becomes more natural. You begin to sense that peace was never absent. It was simply overlooked because attention was elsewhere. Even difficult moments, when seen clearly, are still happening in the present. Sensations arise and change. Thoughts come and go. Emotions move in waves. Nothing remains fixed. And within this movement, awareness itself remains steady. That steadiness is not something you create. It is something you recognize. And when you recognize it, the search begins to quiet down. You no longer need to chase peace as an idea. You begin to rest in the simplicity of being here, even when life is imperfect, even when the mind is active, even when emotions are uncertain. Because peace was never the absence of experience. It was the absence of resistance to experience. As we come to the end of these 10 Buddhist teachings, take a moment to simply pause. Not to analyze, not to improve, not to understand further, but just to be here with yourself as you are. Overthinking does not disappear through pressure. It softens through understanding, through awareness, through gentle return to what is already present in this moment. You do not need to become someone different to find peace. You only need to recognize the space in which everything is already happening. If this video brought you clarity or calm, you can support the channel Mindfulness by liking, subscribing and sharing it with someone who may need a little peace today. May your mind become lighter. May your thoughts become kinder. And may you find again and again your way back to the present moment.